All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Time Out with Doc and Caveman. As always, you are here with Dr. Fantasy and my co-host, the Fantasy Caveman. Before we get rolling, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll get notified anytime we post any great NBA content, and we are just starting our team previews here, so we're still much at the bottom of the standings right now. So today we're going to keep rolling with the Cleveland Cavaliers to recap their season last year. They scored the fewest points per game in the NBA, which is a little surprising to me because they do have some offensive talent, but they did finish last in points per game. They ranked 17th defensively, so almost exactly in the middle. Their record was 22-50, 13th in the Eastern Conference. Their head coach was JB Bickerstaff, who's going to be back this season as well. Then the other note is Isaac Okoro, one of my boys from last year's draft class, made the all-rookie team, the first all-rookie team. So he had a nice, solid rookie season. Then going over their points and their other stat leaders, Colin Sexton led the way with 24.3 points, and then Darius Garland with 17.4 points. Rebounds, Andre Drummond was there for about half the season, 13.5 for him. Jarrett Allen finally getting more of an opportunity with 9.9 rebounds. Darius Garland led the way with assists at 6.1. Then steals, you had Larry Nance with 1.7, Drummond with 1.6, and Darius Garland with 1.2. And then rounding it out, Jared Allen with blocks at 1.4. So, Caveman, who stood out to you here?
Oh man, here's the interesting thing. And I'm gonna kind of take the two. I'm sure. There's other guys that impressed you as well, but I mean, I just want to talk about the backcourt. So, here's the thing: Darius Garland and Colin Sexton both improved individually, but I don't think they showed anything that can prove they could work together in the backcourt.
Yeah, super odd, but yeah.
That's what makes it very odd. They both of their games and they improved individually. I think uh, Colin Sexton I think improved. His points per game jumped up quite a bit from the year prior. I believe it was his points per game improved by like 4 points or something like that. Garland kind of improved in several aspects. And this was a concern even going into last year. This backcourt is not only very undersized, both guys are not that tall. Not only that, they're one of the worst. That's been one of the worst defensive backcourts in the league as well.
Definitely, yeah.
So those, I mean, they both impressed on their own individually, and I think that's the overall theme with this Cavaliers team is like you have to pick apart one thing is that both of these guys for me improved quite a bit on their own, but that's going to be the big question mark going forward, which we'll get into. Is long term is that, and we already saw it with the rumors that they wanted to move on from one of them, and the preference was that they wanted to keep Garland and trade and unload Sexton. We'll see how that is going forward. But overall, both individually impressed. That's what I'll say there.
Yeah, and it is kind of weird because it's once again one of those situations. I talked about it with Shy in the last episode. These guys had more usage because Kevin Love didn't play the whole season. So there was a lot of offensive load on these two guys. And they both had career highs in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. So I always just think that's really encouraging when you see more of a load on these young players and they're more efficient with the opportunities that they get. So I always think that's a very encouraging sign. I semi understand it with Darius Garland. I think they see him as a little more of a leader than Colin Sexton, if that's the direction they're going in. Besides those two, I think Jared Allen showed. Everybody thinks this guy could be one of the top centers in the league. He definitely showed some of that potential. I think there's still more to be had there. I won't talk about Isaac Okoro that much.
I was gonna say, when are you gonna bring
Not
up
that much.
When
But I really like. the way one thing that was concerning to me in the beginning of the season is he actually played really poorly defensively, and he was kind of regarded as the top defender in last year's class. So that was a little worrisome to me because I said, okay, if he can't defend, then what is he going to do in this league? But he ended up being a really, really effective defense. He just had trouble adjusting, and he ended up being really effective. The last month of the season, he also averaged 16.5 points. And I stand by that. I think he's going to become a superstar. Not this year. I think you give it one more year, he could really make some noise in becoming an all NBA player and becoming an all-star in the next 2 years. So I'm excited about Isaac Okoro. I also want to say their bench last season was actually fairly impressive. C.D. Osman was really good off the bench. Larry Nance provided a lot of energy and a great defensive presence off the bench, which a lot of that we're talking about Garland and Sexton being terrible defensively, but this team as a whole was really good defensively. So you had guys like Larry Nance, C.D. Osman, Jarrett Allen, and now Evan Mobley this season, Isaac Okoro making up for their lack. Dellavedova too. Yeah, I mean he was.
He is a solid defender.
He is, yeah, definitely. He provides a lot of energy. I like the way that he plays. But yeah, so to me, it was just more. JB Bickerstaff is still a storyline for me because he got these guys to play. Even when they were out of the playoff hunt, they were playing really hard till the very end. And you saw that the year before before the bubble started and before everything got shut down. But this team was playing really hard for him. And I like him. I always say when teams are really bad, I check the energy level of the team. And you can see sometimes they just don't give a crap. I mean, they're checked out. They're done with the season. But this team played really hard to the very end, and that's going to help in the future when they are trying to win. They're going to be able to win those tough, close games at the end because they're going to go the extra mile. So that's one of the themes for me. Going into the draft, very unexciting / exciting, I guess. I mean, they only had one draft pick, third overall, Evan Mobley. So I guess we can talk about it now or with the depth chart. But what do you think about his future fit just with Sexton, Okoro, Garland, if they're even there, and Jarrett Allen? Do you think he kind of fits in with their current young core?
I mean, I do like it. Now, he has room to grow, obviously, as any draft pick does. But if you look at it, with the pairing of him and Jarrett Allen in the front court, with that backcourt of Sexton and Garland, who, if I'm them at this point, you kind of don't have a choice but to try to continue to ride this backcourt, which makes me a tiny bit pessimistic on the long-term outlook, but still very exciting. And then you got your boy Okoro there as well. I mean, yeah, I think they really needed, because Kevin Love's still there. I would guess Kevin Love play. I don't think Kevin Love's gonna sit out the season again. I assume he's gonna play some games for him and play a little bit. But you basically got your successor to Kevin Love and Evan Mobley. So Kevin Love, Kevin Love's the type of guy where I think Kevin Love's going to be, and this is a term like used a lot with veterans and rookies, he's going to be that quote-unquote mentor type role for a guy like Mobley. So I like the pairing. I think Jarrett Allen has superstar potential. Evan Mobley, I'm not insanely high in him, but he definitely he's borderline superstar potential. Don't know if he has quite there, but he definitely has to be a high-level all-star type player in him. So you put that front court together with two at least all-star potential players, 3 all-star potential. I would throw Okoro as an all-star potential. I don't know. I'm not as high on him as you, but you got 3 all-star potential players, and I think you got 2 superstar potential players. So I do like the fit of Mobley overall.
Yeah, I think I like it because Jarrett Allen is more of your traditional center, sit in the paint. He's going to block shots, be a great rebounder. One of the reasons I don't know if he has superstar potential for me is just because, I mean, I can't think of a superstar who is a traditional center right now. I mean, even Joel Embiid shoots threes. He's got a mid-range game.
Gobert's not a superstar.
I mean, Rudy Gobert's probably a pretty good comparison for Jared Allen. I think he could be a little better than that offensively, but it's not a terrible comparison. I like it because I think Evan Mobley is a modern day. He's Shaq, Jared Allen. Oh gosh, okay, I'm not touching that. But Evan Mobley is a modern big man. I mean, he can handle the ball, and we mentioned he was a point guard in high school and throughout much of his career. So he has great handles. He offers the ability to switch on and off some of those guards that Garland and Sexton, because of their size, can't guard. Because he'll be able to guard bigger guards and forwards in this league because he's fast. He's got length. So he can make up for some of those defense
when he switches out.
Yeah, exactly. So I like their defensive, how it's all meshing together. Even though that backcourt is terrible, Okoro and Mobley can kind of make up for that, and then even Nance and Osman coming off the bench can make up for some of that. So I kind of like the construction of their roster quite a bit, and I do think Evan Mobley. I didn't want to see him become that in the paint traditional center, so I think with him being paired with Jared Allen, it allows him to be that modern big man that he is. So I do think it's a really nice pairing. Actually, at first I was like, I don't know, but I really actually, the more I thought about it and the more I really analyzed, I do really like it. So other additions and losses this offseason, not very exciting here. They did add Ricky Rubio, who's going to be a nice piece off the bench for them. And they lost Taurean Prince, who went over to the Timberwolves. So I'll just go into their depth chart again, kind of talk about all of it at once. But right now, Garland and Sexton are listed as their starters in the backcourt. Ricky Rubio and Demayan Dotson backing them up. Then at the 3, you have Isaac Okoro with C.D. Osman behind him. And then in the front court, you have Kevin Love and Jarrett Allen currently listed as the starters, with Larry Nance and Evan Mobley listed behind them. So we talked a little bit about how this young core was going to be able to gel together, but do you think they have enough depth to be competitive right now?
They have some decent depth. You talk about behind. They also got I don't know if you mentioned they got Jeremiah Martin as well. Exists there. He's a solid player. He exists there. But like Rubio's a great depth piece at this point. I think that helps with the depth. They got some good depth. Like they got Dean Wade who played a decent role for him. They got, like I said, they got Nance. Kevin Love, at least this year, is going to give them something, I would think. I don't know with Kevin Love at this point. Kevin Love's like, if you get something from him, you get something from him.
You're stuck with him. I believe this is the last year. Oh, no, he's got another year after this. Oh, God. Okay, well, I'm sorry for that.
I think day one Evan Mobley starts. But you could rely on Kevin Love being there game one.
I mean, if he's healthy and playing, Kevin Love's going to be the starter.
Yeah. I think that's why I noticed, like, doing the draft and, like, doing these first. I'm like a huge fan of just putting the rookies in the starting lineup game one. But that's just, especially with these higher draft picks. But maybe that's just me. And you pick these guys high for a reason.
The best experience you get is playing. So I mean, I agree.
That's why I would personally start Evan Mobley game day one. But yeah, they have potential. But again, I think what's going to hold them back is I don't think this backcourt is set up for long-term success. I really don't. I like Garland and Sexton individually as players, but both of them need to be in situations. Now, yes, Okoro and Mobley are going to be able to make up for some of that defensively, but with the switching and all that, you're not going to be able to do that on every single possession. Teams are going to be able to combat that. Garland and Sexton are going to need to be able to defend sometimes. And they're not equipped to be a defense. to be good, even average. They're not even equipped to be average. They're going to be one of the bottom 3 defensive backcourts in the league.
Yeah, definitely.
So that is what's really going to hold them back from long-term success. Honestly, they need to get rid of one of them. Now, you can kind of potato, which one do you want to keep? Me personally, I'm more of a fan of Colin Sexton because I think with this lineup, I really think he has more of a scoring upside than Garland. So that's kind of I'm a scoring guy, as you know. So I think he has.
Are
more,
you?
Yeah, no, I'm the guy that likes defense, and you like scoring. Is that how?
I just threw up in my mouth.
But I'm more of a scoring guy, so I'd prefer Sexton, but I think the bottom line is, as you look at this roster, I think they need to get rid of one of them. I really do, for them to have a chance at long-term success.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be an interesting storyline because you're going to have, I don't want to say a cap crunch, but a little bit, because Kevin Love's contract is going to come off the books. But at some point, you're going to have to decide, are we extending these guards? Are we extending Okoro? So they're not going to be able to keep all of those guys. So to me,
they did already extend Jared Allen.
They have Jared Allen there long term. So they made that decision. But, there's going to be decisions that have to happen in the next 2 years here. So, yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I'll say this kind of goes into where we end, which is usually with the future predictions. But I mean, call me crazy, I think this team has a little bit of Knicks potential from last year. I actually like them to that extent. I mean, look at the Knicks roster from last year. I think this Cavs roster is better, if we're being honest about it. They were an average defensive team last year. I think that they're only going to have more experience. Okoro should be more well acquainted with the NBA game and be a better defender from day one. You bring in Mobley as a great defender. They still have, Nance and Osman coming off the bench. Usually a big question is, who is your ball handler leading that second unit? Ricky Rubio answers that question. You have a guy that can 100% lead a second unit offense. And then you have some capable scorers coming off the bench in Mobley, if he's coming off the bench, or if it's Kevin Love. I mean, that guy, that's a great option, scoring off the bench. And then Nance and Osman were pretty solid themselves, score offensively as well. So I think they have depth. I think they can play defense. I'm still shocked they had the fewest points per game last year. Just they have too much talent to do that. So that's going to be the question, is if they can gel. But a lot of that I do think has to do with the backcourt not gelling. So if this backcourt doesn't gel, this is going to be a team that probably finishes in like that 11th, 12th range in the Eastern Conference. But if they can learn to gel and work together offense and defensively for that matter, I mean, I think this is a team that could surprise people. I'm high on this roster and how it's constructed, even though I think that backcourt pairing, it's definitely questionable, but and I don't know what it is exactly, why they don't mesh together. But I think that if they can at least be solid together offensively, defensively, they have enough to make up for that liability. So I don't know. I think this team could surprise. I think the biggest problem with that is that the Eastern Conference is just so deep this year. I mean, when you look at when you're looking at the bottom teams, you assume the Magic, the Pistons, the Raptors, I still think are going to be down there. But after that, I don't know. Can I put them ahead of the Pacers? Or I would put them ahead of the Wizards too. So the Cavs would probably be 12th for me right now with potential to move up. But can they finish ahead of the Hornets? Maybe. The Bulls, I doubt it now. The Pacers.
Don't be crazy about that. Don't be slandering the Hornets name in it now.
That's what I mean, you could debate.
You don't want to get into that debate right now. Whatever.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say 100% the Cavs are above the Hornets, but I think you could debate that they're going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like Hornets 10, Cavs 11 this year. I think that they'll be at least potentially back to back in the state. I like how they're constructed defensively. I think they have the right coaching in place. They have young, interesting pieces. Now, I do think that they could surprise, but I think they're another year away from really I think in 2022-23, we'll be saying this team is definitely a playoff team.
I get the comparison of what the Knicks did last year, but look at what the Knicks had. The Knicks had, first of all, the Knicks were good last year because they brought in Tom Thibodeau and they all bought in. And not saying JB Bickerstaff can't instill that culture, but Tom Thibodeau is a different level of that culture. In terms of the defensive mindset and buying in. I'm not very optimistic. I'm not as optimistic as you are on their defensive potential. I really think that Garland and Sexton is going to be way more of a defensive liability in the backcourt. And it's going to be a little bit tougher to overcome. Now, can they make some noise? Sure. I mean, I think they'll definitely finish above the Magic. So that automatically doesn't make them the worst team in the Eastern Conference because that's going to be Orlando Magic. Do they have the potential to finish above? They're probably going to finish above Washington too. Those are probably be my bottom two teams in the Eastern Conference. So now for me, they're going to be somewhere from 11 to 14. Maybe they finish above the rest. So yeah, I could see 11 to 13, but I don't. For me personally, and this is what's going to be interesting about their growth going forward is they need to decide. To me, they need to decide this year: are they committed to a Sexton and Garland backcourt? Because if they wait to decide on it, or if they're truly not sure, that's going to hurt them long term, and that's what's going to hurt them as far as a potential growth towards becoming a playoff team. Is if they want to commit to them as a long-term backcourt, sure. And if they do that, then maybe we see them, make some strides and overcome enough to be a playoff team. But in order for this team to seriously make noise, I don't think that this backcourt's ever going to be that. That's kind of so 11 to 14, 11 to 14, but more than likely 11 to 13. If this backcourt stays together, maybe they could be a fringe, 8 to 10 seed. But long term, in terms of being a team that seriously competes, I don't think the answer is in this backcourt.
Fair enough. So I think that's a good negative point to end on. So thank you guys for watching our Cleveland Cavaliers episode. Next up is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube and wherever you're listening to podcasts, and we'll see you guys then.